They'd built an empire out of my sweat and then handed it to a man who never got his hands dirty. My parents said it was a business decision, but let's call it what it was, a betrayal with a signature. The family metal shop I kept alive became my brother-in-law's overnight, so I didn't argue. I left, bought a rusted welder, and built my own shop from scratch. And the best part? Their business collapsed under the weight of everything I once held up for them. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments, and I will give you a heart. I grew up in that metal shop. The clang of steel was my lullaby, the hiss of welding torches my morning alarm. While other kids were learning to ride bikes, I was learning to grind, weld, and shape raw metal into something useful. By the time I turned 17, I could build anything from custom gates to full-frame chassis, blindfolded if I had to. That shop wasn't just a family business, it was the heartbeat of my childhood. And for years, I knew that one day it would be mine. My dad used to say, "This place will feed you long after I'm gone." Turns out he was right. He just forgot to mention it wouldn't be my plate he was filling. Things changed the day my sister married Ryan. He was one of those guys who wore button-down shirts to family barbecues and acted like dirt was allergic to him. Nice enough at first, but I knew the type talks about vision and efficiency, but couldn't tell a wrench from a screwdriver. Still, my parents adored him. He's educated, Mom would say, proudly. Knows how to run numbers, manage things. Funny how education suddenly became more valuable than experience when it came wrapped in a suit and a smile. One afternoon, Dad pulled me aside after work. His tone was casual, but his words weren't. "We're thinking of bringing Ryan into the business," he said. "You'll show him around, teach him the ropes." I laughed. "You want me to train my replacement?" He frowned. "Don't be dramatic. He'll just handle the office side of things." That was the beginning of the end. Ryan started small, helping with invoices, making suggestions about cost efficiency. Before long, he was holding staff meetings, adjusting work hours, and giving advice on jobs he'd never done. Every time I walked past the office, I'd see him behind Dad's desk, leaning back like he'd earned it. At first, I bit my tongue. Family business means swallowing pride sometimes, but the day he told me, "You should take more breaks. You're starting to look tired," I nearly dropped the welding torch. "Yeah," I said, "maybe you should try looking tired sometime. It builds character." He chuckled, that polite kind of laugh that's half insult, half arrogance. "You know, one day you'll appreciate how I've helped your dad modernize things." Modernize. That word stung more than any spark burn. Months passed. The shop's name stayed the same, but the energy shifted. My parents started asking Ryan before they asked me. Jobs I'd been handling for years were now under review. He convinced them to install software that made my systems obsolete. The men who once came to me for approval now looked to him. Then came the gut punch. It was a Wednesday morning. I showed up early, like always. The shop lights were off, but the front office was glowing. I saw my parents and Ryan inside, talking. They stopped when they saw me. My dad cleared his throat. "We were going to tell you today." "Tell me what?" Mom handed me an envelope. Inside were legal documents, transfer of ownership papers. The shop was now officially in Ryan's name. My name wasn't on anything. Not the deed, not the contract, not even a thank you note. Felt like the air left the room. My whole life, my calluses, my sweat, my time, erased with a pen stroke. "Why him?" I asked, trying to sound calm. Dad sighed. "He's good with business. He'll take the company to the next level. You can still work here, son. Still work here." Like a pet being told it could stay after the house was sold. Mom tried to soften it. "You've always been good with your hands. Ryan's just better with the books." It's balance. Balance. I almost laughed. "No, Mom. Balance is when both sides are equal. This is a takeover." Ryan started to say something about family and opportunity, but I didn't hear the rest. I was already walking out the door. The air outside hit me like a punch. I stood in the parking lot staring at the building I'd helped build and realized it wasn't mine anymore. It never had been. I was just the scaffolding, useful until the structure could stand on its own. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my cracked hands. They'd built everything except respect. I thought about quitting life in metalwork altogether. Maybe do something easier, something cleaner. But then I looked at my hands again. Blackened, scarred, but still steady. And I realized something. They may have taken the shop, but they couldn't take me. And that's when the spark hit, literally and metaphorically. I grabbed a scrap piece of steel I'd been saving and started welding. No blueprint, no plan, just instinct. By morning, I had a sculpture sitting on my workbench. Crooked, imperfect, but real, mine. That's when it clicked. I didn't need their permission. I just needed a place to start. So I made a decision. I'd build something from nothing. My own shop, my own name, my own future. And this time, the only name on the papers would be mine. The next morning, I walked past the old shop one last time. Through the glass, I saw Ryan sitting behind my father's desk, sipping coffee from a mug that said, "Boss." He looked up, saw me, and smirked like victory had a face. I smiled back because I knew something he didn't. The only thing more dangerous than a man betrayed is a man who's got nothing left to lose, and that's exactly who I'd become. The day I walked away from that shop was the day I stopped building for approval and started building for revenge. Not the bitter kind, but the productive kind. The kind that doesn't throw punches, just outlasts everyone who underestimated you. I started with nothing but my hands and a stubborn streak. I found a rundown garage 2 blocks from a scrapyard. It smelled like rust and regret, but it was cheap, and more importantly, it was mine. The landlord looked at me like I was crazy. "You sure you want to rent this place?" he asked. "Roof leaks, wiring shot, no heat." "Perfect," I said. "I've worked in worse." I spent the first week cleaning. Every corner was caked in dust, every window cracked, but each hour I spent there felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I fixed the lights, patched the roof, welded a door hinge, rewired outlets. By the 3rd day, that cold, forgotten garage started to hum with possibility. When the first spark from my welder hit the steel, I swear it sounded different. Louder, freer. I didn't even have a business name yet, but I already had my first customer, an old construction buddy named Pete. He brought me a job no one else wanted, custom railing for a warehouse. "You think you can handle it alone?" he asked. I looked around the empty space. I already do. The job paid just enough to keep the lights on for another month. I worked 12-hour days, sometimes sleeping on the floor. Every noise became motivation: the buzz of the welder, the grind of the saw, the hum of machines that didn't care if I was angry, just that I kept showing up. Still, the nights got heavy. Some evenings, I'd catch myself staring at my phone, wondering if my parents missed me or if Ryan was sitting behind that old desk pretending he built everything himself. I wanted to call to demand an apology, but pride is a powerful anesthetic. It doesn't fix the wound, but it makes you forget the pain for a while. So instead of calling, I worked. A few weeks in, Pete brought a friend, another contractor who needed steel beams cut and welded for a renovation project. "Heard you're fast and fair," he said. That phrase became my unofficial slogan: fast, fair, fearless. Word spread faster than I expected. My shop, still without a sign, started getting phone calls. A local restaurant wanted a new sign frame. A gym wanted custom racks. And by month 3, I was booked solid. It wasn't just business, it was momentum. And momentum is what separates survivors from legends. Then one night, after finishing a big order, I sat down on the floor, eating instant noodles, and thought about what to call this place. I wanted something that felt alive, something that carried a piece of what built me. I scribbled names on a scrap of cardboard: Steelcraft, Forge Line, Titan Weld, but none felt right. Then I looked at the small scar on my palm, the one from the day I quit the old shop. "Iron Will," I said out loud. It fit. That was the birth of Iron Will Fabrications. Once the name came, everything else followed. I registered the business, printed cards, painted the name on the front wall in red spray paint. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. One by one, small businesses started switching from my parents' shop to mine. They said the old place was different, slower, colder, full of paperwork and excuses. Ryan had turned a family legacy into a corporate checklist. Meanwhile, I kept it simple. I showed up, did the work, delivered on time. Every satisfied customer was another nail in the coffin of the empire they'd stolen from me. By the end of year 1, Iron Will had tripled its client base. I hired 2 helpers, one fresh out of trade school, the other a laid-off mechanic. Both had that hungry look I recognized in myself. Together we built from sunrise to exhaustion. Still, there were moments of doubt. Nights I'd collapse onto the workshop floor and wonder if success would ever feel like justice. Maybe justice wasn't the point anymore. Maybe building something unbreakable was the justice. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a Friday evening when an older man walked into my shop. I recognized him instantly, one of my dad's oldest customers, a contractor named Hank. "Heard you're the one to call these days," he said, grinning. I laughed. "Guess word travels fast." He nodded. "Your folks' place? They messed up my last order. Ryan tried to charge me extra for fixing their mistake, said he was modernizing the pricing model." I raised an eyebrow. "Modernizing?" "Yeah, funny word for overcharging." He looked around my shop, nodding at the steady rhythm of work echoing through the space. "You remind me of your dad in his early days," he said, "except maybe hungrier." That hit hard, because it was true. I'd inherited my father's work ethic, just not his blind spots. Hank handed me a contract right there. A full 6-month project, custom steel structures for a commercial complex. The kind of job that puts small shops on the map. "You sure you want to trust a one-man operation?" I asked. He smirked. "I'd rather trust the man who lost everything and built it back with his bare hands than the one who got handed something and still broke it." That line stayed with me long after he left, because it wasn't just business, it was validation. A few weeks later, I saw my parents for the first time since walking away. They stopped by unannounced. My mom looked around, eyes wide, like she was walking through a dream she didn't know I'd built. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "We didn't realize how far you'd come." Dad nodded, slower than usual. "You've done well, son." "Didn't have much choice," I said. "Failure wasn't an option." Mom looked down. "Ryan's been struggling. Business isn't what we thought it'd be." I just nodded. Sometimes the best way to see what something's worth is to lose it. She opened her mouth to speak, but I turned back to my workbench, not to be rude, but because I'd already said everything I needed to without words. As they left, my dad looked back and said, "You know, this place has your name written all over it." I smiled faintly. It always did. That night, I locked up the shop and stood in the parking lot watching the sign flicker under the streetlight. Iron Will Fabrications. My name, my story, my redemption in steel. I didn't know what came next, but I knew this much. The next chapter wouldn't be about proving them wrong. It would be about building something they couldn't ignore. There's something poetic about the sound of progress. The steady rhythm of machines, the hiss of hot metal, the hum of a dream finally paying rent. A year after walking out of my parents' shop, Iron Will Fabrications was alive. Not thriving yet, but breathing strong. Every day began with coffee, ended with sparks, and in between was the kind of work that made you forget time existed. I had 2 employees now. Lisa, the single mom who could outweld anyone in a 10-mile radius, and Tony, a quiet kid from the trade school who worked like every paycheck decided his next meal. Together, we were unstoppable. The shop was loud, messy, imperfect, but honest. You could feel it in the air. This wasn't just a job. It was proof that we'd all been underestimated. Our biggest project at the time was the commercial complex Hank had landed me. He'd trusted me with a 6-month deadline, and failure wasn't an option. Every beam, every bracket, every inch of steel that left my shop had to scream precision. Word travels fast in this industry. One mistake can stain your name faster than rust. By month 2, our work was drawing attention. Contractors started dropping by just to see the little shop that could. Even the local paper did a short feature called me the blacksmith of second chances. I laughed at that headline, but deep down it meant more than I wanted to admit. After years of being the backup plan, I was finally the blueprint. One night, after we finished welding the last frame for Hank's project, Lisa turned to me and said, "You realize you built this from nothing, right? Like, nothing." I shrugged, wiping sweat from my neck. "Yeah, but nothing's a great starting point. It keeps you humble." She smirked. "You're not humble, boss. You're just quiet revenge in human form." We laughed, but I knew she wasn't wrong. Every success, every satisfied client was a quiet victory over the people who thought I wasn't management material. But success has a way of echoing in the wrong places. A few weeks later, I got a call I didn't expect. From my sister. "Hey," she said hesitantly, "I think you should know. Ryan's been asking around about you, your shop, your clients, everything. I exhaled slowly. Of course he is. He's worried, she continued. Says a few of their old customers jumped ship. Dad's been tense. Mom's trying to keep the peace. I'm not competing with them, I said flatly. I'm just doing what they said I couldn't. I know, she said softly. But to them, that's the same thing. She wasn't wrong. In their eyes, my success wasn't independence, it was defiance. The following week, one of my suppliers called, "Hey, Jordan, hate to ask, but are you still working with the Reynolds account? They told me you're on their team again." My stomach tightened. Ryan was trying to blur the lines, pretend I was still part of their operation, trying to ride the wave of my growth like it was his comeback. I didn't get angry, not this time. I just smiled. Tell them I wish them luck, and tell everyone else we're not in the same business anymore. Because we weren't. They sold steel, I built trust. The next few months were chaos, the good kind. Iron Will expanded. We leased the garage next door, upgraded equipment, and brought on 2 more welders. By year 2, we were supplying parts to 3 major contractors in Chicago and designing custom industrial pieces for architects who wanted that rugged, handmade look. I didn't realize it then, but I'd crossed the invisible line between surviving and leading. One Friday evening, Tony came into the office, holding up a check from a client. "This one's double the usual," he said, eyes wide. I looked at it and smiled. Guess they liked our work. "No, boss," he said, grinning. "They loved it. They're asking if you can handle a downtown job next month. Full structural frames, multi-floor." That's when it hit me. I wasn't just rebuilding a career, I was building an empire. Still, late nights have a way of stirring ghosts. Somewhere around midnight, after everyone left, I sat in the quiet hume of the shop, looking at the walls I'd patched myself. The glow of the welding torches had long faded, but in the reflection of the steel beams, I saw it, my father's face, his voice echoing from years ago. "You've got the hands, son. Ryan's got the mind." And for the first time, I didn't hear it as an insult. I heard it as proof of how wrong they'd been, because those same hands had built something their mind couldn't save. A few days later, I got a message from my mom. "Can we talk?" When she arrived, she looked older, tired, not from age, but from disappointment. "Your father won't say it, but Ryan's struggling. The shop's losing clients. I think he bit off more than he could chew." I leaned against my desk, wiping grease from my palms. "I warned you about corporate efficiency. Metal doesn't care about spreadsheets." She sighed. "He's trying. But your father, he's stubborn. He won't ask for help." "Then don't ask me to offer it," I said. "I'm not," she said softly. "I'm just saying, you won, Jordan. You proved your point." I shook my head. "It wasn't about winning, Mom. It was about surviving." But even as I said it, I knew survival wasn't enough anymore. What I wanted now was something bigger, not revenge, not validation. Legacy. That night, I walked through the shop one more time. The air smelled of oil and heat, that comforting mix of hard work and hope. My employees' laughter still lingered in the space, even after they'd gone home. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not obligation, not hierarchy, but respect earned one weld at a time. I looked at my reflection in the office window. Same hands, same face, new purpose. Because building a business is one thing, but building yourself back from betrayal, that's art. And deep down, I knew the story wasn't done yet. The past always finds its way back, especially when it realizes you've outgrown it. And when it did, I'd be ready, not to fight, but to remind them, one final time, what real strength looks like when you forge it yourself. The phone call came on a Monday morning, the kind that interrupts a good day before it starts. I was in the middle of checking invoices when my receptionist poked her head in. "There's a Mr. Reynolds on line 2, she said. I froze. There were 2 Mr. Reynolds in my world. One by blood, one by betrayal. I already knew which one it was. I picked up, kept my voice calm. "Jordan here." Silence for a moment, then my father's voice, steady but smaller than I remembered. "Son, we need to talk." I almost laughed. "Now you want to talk?" "It's about the shop," he said quickly. We're in trouble." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I'd expected this moment, just not how heavy it would feel. "What kind of trouble?" He exhaled. Ryan left, took some of the company funds with him. We're behind on taxes, lost our two biggest clients, and, well, we might lose the building. I said nothing. The silence between us stretched, full of all the years we hadn't spoken. Finally, I said, "So the man with the mind didn't plan that part out?" He didn't respond, just sighed again. "I made mistakes, Jordan. I thought he could help us grow. Instead, he hollowed us out." For a long moment, I didn't know if I felt anger or pity, maybe both. "You want me to fix it," I said flatly. "I want to ask if you'd consider helping," he said. "Not because we deserve it, because you're the only one who can." I looked around my office, the blueprints on the wall, the hum of machines outside, the logo I'd painted with my own hands. Everything here existed because they hadn't believed in me. "I'll think about it," I said finally, and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in my apartment felt too loud. The question kept replaying in my head. Do I help them? They had taken everything from me, but without them, none of this would exist. If I helped, it wouldn't be for them. It'd be for the younger version of me who believed family meant something. The next morning, I drove to their shop. The sign out front was faded, the parking lot half empty. The smell that once defined my childhood, hot steel and oil, was weaker now, almost sad. Dad was inside, hunched over the desk that used to intimidate me. His hair had thinned, his pride had gone with it. He looked up, eyes red but hopeful. "You came. Curiosity's a powerful thing," I said. Mom appeared from the back office, her face lighting up like she hadn't aged a day since the last time she hugged me. "Jordan," she whispered, "it's good to see you." "Wish I could say the same about this place," I said, scanning the walls, rust, disarray, half-dead machines. This wasn't a shop anymore. It was a memory trying not to fade. Dad rubbed his temples. We tried to modernize too fast. Ryan had big plans, automation, expansion. It bled us dry. I stepped closer, running a hand over a workbench I'd built when I was 17. The initials I'd carved into it were still there. J.R. "You know," I said quietly, "you told me I wasn't fit to lead because I didn't understand the business side. But this? This isn't business, this is ego." He flinched, but nodded. "You're right." I looked around one more time. "You want advice? Sell the property before the bank does it for you. Pay off what you can. Close this chapter before it buries you." Mom's voice cracked. "You won't take it over?" I turned to her. "You didn't transfer the shop to me when it mattered. Don't hand me the ashes now." She started to cry softly, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger, just exhaustion. As I turned to leave, Dad called out, "What would you have done differently?" I paused at the door. I would have trusted the person who already knew how to build instead of the one who just knew how to talk about it. Then I walked out. That conversation didn't feel like revenge. It felt like release. The kind that comes when you finally stop needing them to understand. Back at Iron Will, I told Lisa and Tony what happened. They didn't say much, just nodded, the way people do when they already know the answer you haven't said out loud. "So," Lisa asked, "what now?" I smiled faintly. "Now we grow." Over the next few months, growth became our new language. We landed 2 more major contracts, expanded into custom metal art for architects, and even partnered with a local trade school to train young welders. I made sure every student who stepped into my shop knew one rule: respect the craft before you respect the title. That was the lesson I learned too late, but when I was determined to pass on. And just when I thought the past had finally gone quiet, an envelope arrived at my office. Inside was a folded letter and a photo of my parents standing in front of their old building, "Sold" sign on the door. The letter said only, "We're proud of you, Jordan. Thank you for showing us what real leadership looks like." No signature, no apology, just closure. I set the photo on my desk, right next to the Iron Will logo. For a long time, I stared at both past and present side by side. Then I smiled, because in a strange way, they'd finally kept their promise. They said the shop would feed me long after they were gone, and it did, just not the way they expected, because what I built from Betrayal wasn't just a business. It was proof that legacy doesn't come from inheritance. It's forged one spark, one scar, one choice at a time. The day I opened that letter, I thought it was the ending. But life, I've learned, never wraps up neatly. It just changes rhythm. The week after my parents sold the old shop, I kept catching myself driving past it on my way to Ironwell. The new owners had already painted over the sign. The building that once carried our family's name now read Steel Core Industries. No nostalgia, no ceremony, just a new coat of paint over 30 years of sweat. I sat in my truck for a few minutes watching forklifts move through the open bay doors. That place had once been my prison and my classroom. Now it was just real estate. And somehow I felt lighter. I wasn't angry anymore, I was grateful, because without losing that place, I never would have built mine. At Ironwell, business was booming, the contracts got bigger, the deadlines shorter, the pressure heavier, and I loved every second of it. We were now producing architectural installations, custom industrial parts, and even metal sculptures for city art projects. The same hands my parents once called too simple for leadership were now shaking hands with city officials. One morning, while I was finishing blueprints, Lisa walked in, holding a coffee and a grin. Guess who called? Please don't say the IRS. She laughed. Better, the trade school wants to feature you in their mentorship program. They said your story's inspiring. I smirked. Guess getting betrayed is trendy now. No, she said, setting the coffee on my desk. Getting back up is. That hit deeper than I let on, because every success I'd had came with ghosts attached. Ghosts that whispered, "You weren't supposed to make it this far." A few weeks later, the trade school invited me to speak. Almost said no. I'd rather face molten steel than a microphone. But Lisa insisted. "You've got a story worth hearing," she said. "Besides, someone out there needs it." So I went. The auditorium was packed with students, future welders, machinists, builders, all hungry for a chance. I told them about the long hours, the burned scars, the nights when ramen was dinner and doubt was dessert. I told them about how my parents gave my birthright to a man who couldn't tell aluminum from stainless, and how I thanked them years later by building something stronger. When I finished, the room went quiet. Then one student, a kid maybe 19, raised his hand. "So, do you ever forgive them?" The question hung there like hot air. I thought about it, really thought about it. "Forgive?" I said. "Yeah, but not for them, for me." Because carrying resentment is like trying to weld with dirty metal. The joint never holds. You have to clean the surface before you can make something new, they nodded. And in that moment, I realized the story had stopped being about payback a long time ago. It had become a blueprint for anyone who'd ever been overlooked. A week later, I got another surprise. An email from my sister, subject, Ryan's filing for bankruptcy. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "I hope he learned something from it." She wrote back, "He says he wants to apologize to you." I didn't respond. Some debts don't get paid in words. Months passed. Ironwell expanded again, bigger warehouse, better machines, a full crew of 15. We even signed a partnership with the city to train underprivileged youth in metalworking. Watching those kids handle torches for the first time reminded me of who I used to be. Scared, eager, desperate to be seen. One evening, while walking through the shop, I noticed a framed photo hanging crooked on the wall. It was a group picture from our first year, me, Lisa, and Tony, grinning like lunatics in front of our unfinished sign. I straightened the frame, staring at it for a moment. Everything I'd lost had led me to this exact scene. Then my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it until I saw the text, "Hey, it's Dad. We'd like to visit your shop if that's okay." They came the next afternoon. Mom looked proud, Dad looked nervous. I watched them walk through the shop like tourists, taking in the noise, the sparks, the rhythm of progress. Dad ran his hand along one of our new machines. "You've done well," he said. "Better than well," Mom added. "You've built something incredible." I nodded. "Yeah, and this time it's staying in the family, my real family." I motioned toward my crew, the ones who showed up when things were hard. Dad's eyes softened. "You're a better man than I was." "No," I said, "just a man who learned the hard way what not to repeat." We stood there for a while in the noise and heat, the unspoken words filling the gaps. They didn't apologize outright, but I could feel it, in the way my dad nodded, in the way my mom smiled. Sometimes silence is its own form of sorry. Before they left, Dad turned and said, "If your mother and I ever start another business, you'll be the first to run it." I laughed. "Let's hope you learn to keep better paperwork this time." He laughed too, and for the first time, it wasn't awkward. It was peace. That night, when the shop finally went quiet, I sat at my desk staring at the glowing Iron Will logo on the wall. It hit me then. I hadn't just rebuilt a business, I'd rebuilt faith. Faith in work, faith in people, faith in myself. The family that once shut me out had come back to watch me thrive, not because I begged them to, but because I showed them how it's done. And as I switched off the lights, I realized something simple, something powerful. They took the metal shop from me, but they gave me something better, the fire. And that fire, it doesn't rust. The morning after my parents' visit, the shop felt different, quieter. Not in sound, the machines still roared, sparks still flew, but in energy. The tension that had lived in my chest for years was gone. What replaced it was clarity. I walked the shop floor, watching my crew work. Tony was teaching a new hire how to align sheet panels. Lisa was joking with a supplier on the phone, negotiating like she owned the place. Everyone moved with a rhythm, a purpose. I realized I'd built something self-sustaining, a place that didn't need me hovering over it to survive. That's when it hit me. I didn't just build a metal shop, I built a legacy. Not the kind my parents tried to hand off like a signed document, a living, breathing one, built on lessons, not luck. That afternoon, I got a call from the local business journal. They wanted to do a feature on Iron Will fabrications, how we started from a single garage and became one of the most respected independent metalworks in the city. I almost turned it down, but Lisa convinced me. Your story's not just yours anymore, she said. It's proof that family can break you and still teach you how to rebuild stronger. So I said yes. The interview went viral online. Suddenly, I was getting messages from strangers, small business owners, trade apprentices, even people halfway across the country saying things like, "Your story made me quit my job and start my own thing," or "I was the overlooked one too." That's when I realized how powerful pain becomes when you turn it into purpose. A month later, I got an invitation I never expected. A regional manufacturing conference wanted me as a keynote speaker. The topic, building from betrayal. When I walked on stage that night under bright lights, I wasn't nervous. I looked at the crowd, hundreds of builders, welders, engineers, dreamers, and felt that same fire I had when I struck my first spark in that broken down garage. I started with the truth. I didn't plan to build a business, I said. I just wanted to prove my parents wrong. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about them. It became about what I could build when no one believed in me. I told them about the betrayal, the garage, the hunger, the sleepless nights, the first customer who trusted me. Then I paused and smiled. Funny thing is, I used to think revenge was the goal. Turns out the real revenge is success that doesn't need an audience. The crowd went silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. When the conference ended, a man in his late 40s approached me. Calloused hands, grease-stained jacket, a working man. "My dad did the same thing to me," he said quietly. "Gave our shop to my brother. But hearing your story, maybe it's not too late for me to build my own." I shook his hand. "It's never too late. The only thing you lose by starting over is your excuses." He laughed, nodded, and walked away. That moment meant more to me than any award or contract, because now the story wasn't mine anymore. It was a blueprint for anyone rebuilding from ashes. A few weeks later, I got another text from my sister. "Dad sold the last of the old equipment. He said he wants to come work for you part-time." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Tell him to come by. There's always work here, if he's willing to earn it like everyone else." When he showed up the following Monday, he looked nervous. "You sure about this?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, but no shortcuts. We'll clock in like the rest of the team." He smiled. Fair enough. Watching him step into Iron Will as an employee, not a boss, felt surreal. It wasn't revenge, it was restoration, full circle, forged in humility and second chances. A year later, Iron Will expanded again. We opened a second facility, bigger, cleaner, faster, but the name stayed the same, painted in bold red letters on every wall. One afternoon, I stood in front of the new building, watching my crew install the final sign. The sun hit the metal just right, making the letters glow. For a moment, I saw my younger self standing there, grease on his face, fire in his chest, heart full of anger. And I wanted to tell him something. You didn't lose the family business. You found your own. That evening, I got a letter from my mother. Inside was a single line written in her neat handwriting. Your father and I are proud of the man you became, the one we should have trusted from the start. No apology could have meant more. I folded the note carefully, tucked it into my wallet, and got back to work. Because that's what I do. I build. Now, when people ask how Iron Will started, I tell them the truth. It started with a loss. Betrayal. A signature on a piece of paper that said I didn't belong. But betrayal doesn't break builders. It builds them differently. And every time I strike the welder and see the light cut through the dark, I'm reminded of one thing. You can take someone's shop, their title, their legacy, but if you can't take their will, you've already lost. And mine? It's iron.